What's up guys, Chenzo here. So my wife recently got very interested in this sort of heavily textured type of artwork made using common materials like joint compound and drywall spackling. She asked me to make her a couple of paintings, and even though I'm not really familiar with this type of artwork, I decided to take a swing at it anyways. So I'm making this video to kind of share my experience so far, just in case you might be new to this type of artwork as well. I'll also share a list of the tools that I'm using, and I'll share a little bit of my process and my approach to making a piece like this. Keep in mind, I've only been doing this for a few weeks, so I'm still in the experimentation phase, but if you'd like to follow the journey, be sure to stick around and subscribe. But with all that said and done, let's go ahead and jump into today's project. So today we're going to be talking about this sort of textured art using either spackling or joint compound. I'm going to compare my results with each, as well as comparing my results with both of these products combined. I will say that this piece right here was made using joint compound, and as you can see, I experienced a lot of heavy cracking. So this piece is going to go ahead and get scrapped. The previous piece that I did, I made using 50% spackling and 50% joint compound, only because that's what I had on hand at the time. With that combination, I had really good results. I'll show you that piece here in a bit. So like I said, this piece is about 50% Dryden spackling and about 50% joint compound. With that combination, I got no cracking whatsoever. I was able to get a ton of texture in here, and overall, this one came out perfect. It was my first project, so I was really surprised to have such good results. And today's project will be made using 100% Dryden spackling, and I'm gonna see if I get better results with that. So it's kind of an experiment to see, you know, what products are gonna be best for this type of art. Before I jump into the project, I do wanna give you guys a quick rundown of the tools that I'm using. Of course, the obvious one is gonna be some sort of joint knife or spreader, and I have them in various sizes. And then I also use a regular hair comb. So I just went ahead and picked up a cheap wide tooth comb, and that works perfectly for lines like that. And then you'll also notice that I have a couple of gardening tools here. This scoop comes in handy, especially if you're using these big 1-gallon containers of product, just scooping that out. So that's what I use this for. This gardening tool is what I use to get these really thick lines. That's the rundown. Let's go ahead and jump into today's project. As you can tell, this is a pretty big canvas. This, I believe, is 36 by 48 inches. So I've got a pretty good amount of spackling laid out. I'm gonna go ahead and spread this and see if I need to apply any more, but just to give you guys an idea, I've already used about half the tub. So the first order of business obviously is to get the product spread out and to make sort of a base layer, which is what I'm finishing up now. I'm not really worrying too much about texture at this point, but that is kind of a byproduct of this first process, is you get kind of some nice random textures, and that'll kind of give me something to work with later. But I'm gonna finish spreading this out, and yeah, I'm gonna get back to it. One thing I will say about the texture of this spackling compared to the texture of the joint compound is I do enjoy spreading the joint compound a little bit better. It's got more of a soft, smooth texture. This has kind of a little bit more of like a sandy, thicker, almost a little grit to it. It's smooth overall, but you can tell I definitely got to put some pressure down on the canvas to get this to spread. I will say you can get some really interesting textures with both of them, and they are a little bit different in kind of subtle ways. I guess I enjoy them both, but I will say joint compound is easier to spread and lay down that base layer. Got to put a little bit more muscle into the spackling, I feel like. So I've got the base layer down. I'm just going back and kind of adding some different lines and a bit of interest And I'm also adding a little bit of Drydex in the areas that I know I'll be carving lines into, because I want those areas to be a little bit thicker so that I can get those lines nice and pronounced and very well defined. So we are all done for now. I'm gonna leave this overnight to dry and cure, but in my experience, sometimes it takes longer than 1 day. So I'll check in with you guys when this thing is nice and dry. All right guys, so here we are about 2 days later. And as you can see, this piece is about 98, 99% cured. There's only pink in a few small areas here and there where I apply the product the thickest. And as you can see, we got a ton of texture here. Looks really nice. And the main thing is we have no cracking at all. So there's no cracking or flaking. And overall, I would say this project is a success. Once again, this is using the Drydex spackling. We'll take one more look at the piece that I did a few days ago using the joint compound. Ton of cracking, ton of flaking, and unfortunately, I'll have to go ahead and scrap this piece. But as of right now, I will say that if I'm comparing the results from joint compound versus the Drydex, I would definitely go with the Drydex at this point. All right guys, so here is the final product, finished and mounted in my living room. One last thing to note is this canvas is much heavier than it was before. The Drydex adds a significant amount of weight to the canvas, so be sure to use the appropriate hardware. In my case, I'm using these heavy duty drywall screws and anchors to keep the art piece supported and in place. Before I go, I do want to invite you to subscribe and stick around for the next adventure. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.